What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to this short series that I'm doing that's talking about aiming techniques in Call of Duty. In the first episode, we discussed when you should aim down sight and when you should be hip firing in a gunfight. But that was assuming that you were already on target. The target was already centered in your screen. So today, we're going to be focusing on the most effective way to actually get on target, assuming you're off target in the first place. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so this one has to kind of be split up into two parts. The first part we're going to be talking about assuming you're off target. Should you aim down sight first and then sweep onto your target? Or should you center your target in your screen before aiming down sight and then aim down sight once that target is centered in your screen? The second part, we are then going to discuss when you should actually start firing in this particular situation. Should you start firing immediately and then try to track yourself on target? Or should you make sure you're on target first and then start firing? Now, one thing I want to clear up right at the beginning here is the gameplay in the background is going to be demonstrating these techniques against bots. And yes, I am exaggerating things a little bit with this gameplay. So I'm purposely trying to start off target and then try and snap to the target, or aim down sight and then sweep over the target. And I will be exaggerating things a little bit there. And also, I am playing against recruit bots here, so I am still going to be getting kills very easily. But I want you to really pay attention to how these aiming techniques are affecting the speed at which I'm able to get on target and get the kills at the same time. So let's cover the first part of the video. Should you sweep over your target after aiming down sight already, or should you center him in your screen? This is where a lot of people's opinions differ, and it will be different for everyone's personal taste. Some guys like to do it one way, some guys like to do it the other way. I'm going to be sort of showing my argument for why I like to center my target first and then aim down sight. In my opinion, the most effective way to get on target quickly and accurately is to first center your target in your screen and then aim down sight. And I am specifically talking about Advanced Warfare when I'm talking about this. In previous Call of Duties, it was a little bit different because there wasn't nearly as much verticality in a gunfight, and enemies couldn't basically be up in the sky or way over to your left or right. They were more or less on a flat plane, and they were kind of funneled into choke points. So this is definitely different in Advanced Warfare. So why do I feel like you should center your target on your screen before aiming down sight? Well, a lot of this has to do with the sensitivity factor. Essentially, when you have a gun and you are in your hip fire mode, you can spin around quite quickly, even with a low sensitivity. And I do run quite a low sensitivity. I run a 4 sensitivity typically. Because of this, I'm still able to snap between targets while I'm in hip fire mode quite fast. But once I aim down sight, you're technically zooming in with your view, and because you're zooming in with this, it actually changes the speed at which you're able to rotate around the map. This is great for if you're trying to make really fine adjustments or you're trying to just move a little bit, because you do have a little bit more precision and control once you're zoomed in a little bit. The downside to this is when your enemies are moving like crazy, especially in Advanced Warfare where they're jumping around all over the place, it can be very difficult to track onto your target, even with the aim assist that consoles have. So this is why I tend to run the quick draw grip on my assault rifles rather than stock, and people ask me all the time, why do I run quick draw instead of stock on assault rifles? Because in previous Call of Duty, stock was great because you could make all those little fine adjustments with your aim by simply strafing back or forth, which is still an okay strategy, especially at longer ranges. But I prefer the quick draw because I prefer snapping from one target to the next target very quickly while still maintaining my lower sensitivity for that added precision. So just picture this situation here. You've got an enemy on the top right corner of your screen. Your aim is centered right now. He's on the top right corner of your screen, and then you have another enemy on the bottom left corner of your screen who's a little bit less of a threat, but you still have to deal with him right away. When you aim down sight first, you have to aim down sight, track slowly onto the first target that's on the top right corner of your screen. And by that time, he's probably coming down out of the air, out of his jump, so he's a little bit harder to track still. Maybe you kill him in time, and now you have to track all the way back over to your other enemy while still being aimed down sight. When you have a lower sensitivity, this takes way too long, and you'll be lucky to get the first kill. It's highly unlikely you'll actually get that second kill. So what I like to do is with my lower sensitivity, I can sort of snap onto that first target very, very quickly by staying in hip fire mode because I have that increased sensitivity in hip fire mode. And then I can aim down sight. Sometimes I'll aim down sight sort of as I'm tracking over, but by the time I'm fully aimed down sight, I am on target. I'm just getting on target anyways. I can take my shots on that target, snap back out of aiming down sight so I have that increased sensitivity again, so I'm now in hip fire mode, track all the way back over to the left-hand corner of my screen, and then snap onto that target as well. I find that is a whole lot faster, at least for me with my sensitivity, that's a whole lot faster than being aimed down sight the entire time and trying to track between the two different targets. Now, an added bonus to using this style of aim, where you get on target and then center him in your screen, is when you're aiming down sight, it's actually very difficult to use the exo movements. But when you are not aiming down sight, when you're jumping through the air, you can snap on a target at any point in time that you want to snap on the target. While you're dashing, while you're jumping in the air, you can snap on target whenever you want. It's a whole lot easier to jump up in the air and then dash sideways and then snap onto your target than it is to be aimed down sight, jump in the air, try and dash while you're in the air and stay on target or get on target in that situation. So that's just a little added bonus in Advanced Warfare to using this style of aiming. So this is a skill that I really recommend that you guys master. You can do this while doing my aiming drill. I highly recommend doing my aiming drill. And one adjustment you can even make to the aiming drill, I will link that in the description below if you don't know what I'm talking about. You can go check that out. I highly recommend giving it a shot. But an adjustment you can make is, instead of playing free-for-all, put it on team deathmatch and give yourself a couple bots on your team just so you can sort of read where the enemies are going to be and everything. But have several enemy bots on the other team. This will allow you to snap between targets and practice that snapping between targets. Because in free-for-all, the enemies are kind of in every direction, and you don't really get that same practice of snapping from one target to the next target that's right beside him. Instead, in Team Deathmatch, a lot of the times you have multiple enemies on your screen at any given time, and this is great practice for snapping from one target to the next target that's right beside him, to the next target that's right beside him. So I find that this is the most effective way to get onto target. You center him in your screen and then aim down sight, or you can do a little bit of a hybrid and start aiming down sight as you're centering the target in your screen, but by the time you get on target, you should just be getting into aim down sight instead of aiming down first and then sweeping over. I find it just takes a lot less time to do it my way. So now moving on to the second part. When should you actually start shooting in this engagement? Should you start shooting right away with your hipfire as you try and track onto target and get onto your target? Or should you make sure that your first shot is going to hit? You wait until you're entirely on target before taking the shot. And this one really goes back to the first part of this series that I did. Essentially, it really depends on the situation. If you're right up close and you don't have too far to track, I say you might as well start firing as you're trying to track over to your target. And by the time you get on target, you'll probably have already landed 1 or 2 bullets from your hip fire, and just that time between not being on target and being on target, you might land a couple shots there and you might get lucky. You basically want to get bullets downrange as fast as possible in those close quarter situations. Once you start getting to that mid to long range though, I highly recommend waiting till you're on target before taking any shots. Like I said in the last episode, if you hit your first shot, it's a whole lot easier to hit the next 3 or 4. If you don't hit your first shot, now you have to deal with recoil, and you have to try and get on target while your gun is sort of kicking around, and a lot of times you're also being shot in this situation, so you got to deal with that as well. So there's just too many variables to consider if you start shooting off target and then try to track on target. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of Aiming Techniques. If there are any more aiming techniques that you'd like me to cover, any more questions that you might have about aiming, let me know in the comment section below, and I may even add another part onto this video. I might just go through and answer a bunch of different questions about aiming, and do that kind of all in one video for a third part to this series. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.